Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you, Adam, and thank you all for joining us today for this great webinar. And we're excited to have as our presenter today Jill Peltzman. Jill is the Digital Media Director for the Union for Reform Judaism. In that function, Jill helps create and manage the look of the URJ materials, and in particular, she is the day-to-day manager of our two main websites, urj.org and reformjudaism.org. Reformjudaism.org is our newest site, and if you have not visited it yet, I encourage you to do so. Wait until the webinar is over because you're going to learn a lot from the webinar, but as soon as it is over, if you haven't visited our new site, go to reformjudaism.org. Jill brings to her work a background of web design and web development, having worked in the private sector before joining the staff of the Union for Reform Judaism. She is a great presenter, and I know that we're all going to learn a lot from her, and it is my pleasure to turn the presentation over to Jill Peltzman.
Thank you, Victor, and thank you, Adam. So hello, everybody. Today I will be talking about all of the things that you should keep in mind and know, well, not all of them, but most of the things that you should keep in mind and know about building a new website or refining your existing congregational website. We'll be discussing the important tasks of identifying your audience and your goals, creating web-optimized content, and I'll explain what that means, text, photos, and the overall design of your site. The importance and some tips about getting indexed in search engines like Google and Bing. Some ideas about how to market your site. Usability testing, what it is and how you might think about doing it. And resources that we offer to help you from URJ. So the first thing that you need to think about, whether you're building a site from scratch or if you're looking at your current site and thinking how can we make it better. The first step in that process, as simplistic as it might sound, is to really think about and define on a conscious level who your audience is. And for most of you congregations, your audience is usually comprised of two separate groups. Your current membership, people who are coming to your site who are members of your congregation to get information about what's going on usually, and a much larger group, which are your prospective members. And within that group, you should do some thinking about who it is that you're trying to reach. Usually that is comprised of young families, people who are shul shopping, as we say, because they have young children and they're just starting to think about getting re-engaged in Jewish life and bringing their children to religious school. New residents of the community, people who've just moved in and who are looking to connect with the Jewish community. What we call seekers, who are people who are curious about Judaism, might be interested in converting to Judaism and looking at it as a spiritual path. And for all of these groups, and possibly more, you should be thinking about these people as coming from very diverse backgrounds. So they may not all be like the people that you already have in your congregation, and you need to think about all of their possible situations, people of different ethnicities, people of different ages and different stations in life, and people with all sorts of different characteristics. And there might be some other group that I'm not mentioning that is an obvious fit for someone looking for your website. And once you've made that list and defined who your audience members are and characteristics about them, then you need to define a set of goals for each of those audiences. And it's really important to write these things down and to make a very long list of everything that you think that these people might be looking for on your site. This will really help you to design an effective website. And you'll see as we go through this why that's important. So for your current members, you need to write down everything that you can think of that they might be looking for when they come to your site. They would certainly want to know what time their service is, When are the times and dates of events that are happening? Where are the forms to sign up for these events? How do they contact the rabbi? There are probably a million questions that you can think of, and you need to make a long laundry list of all of those. And for prospective members, it might be a little more challenging, since you're obviously already a member of your congregation, to put yourself in the mindset of somebody who is looking at possibly joining a congregation. So some things that they might be thinking are, what is the personality of this congregation? What are the people like? How welcoming will this congregation be for me and my family? It's especially important for families who might be, as they say, non-traditional, like single-parent families or multi-generational families, or families with disabilities, or families with same-sex parents. They will probably be really looking to see if this congregation is open and welcoming to them and their family and their situation. You need to think about prospective members need to attend some of your events to sort of just try out your synagogue. They might want to know what time services are and what the religious school is like. And they certainly may want to know how to become a member and who to contact. And as I said before, there are probably dozens of other things that prospective members might be looking for, and it's really important for you to list them. So what do you do with these lists? The next step in creating a website is to create the site structure, and then after that to create your content. And this book by Steve Krug is called Don't Make Me Think, and it's a book that is my personal Torah for website design and usability. It's a really easy read. It's humorous, and it really is an eye-opening book in understanding how people use the web, because that's not an easy task usually for people who are creating websites, to understand what it's like for the user. And the title of his book, Don't Make Me Think, really encompasses his whole philosophy, which is important to always keep in mind. Counterintuitively, because you might think that your congregational website is something that you want people to really ponder and think about and read through carefully, because these are materials that you care about, and certainly they should too. But most people, when they're using the web, spend very little time on the web pages, and they scan the pages and look quickly for the information that they're trying to find. And if you make your content and your design of your website difficult to use, you're going to force them to think. And if you force them to think about what it is that they're trying to find or what it is they need to click on next, you're going to lose them. So Don't Make Me Think is the defining principle of web usability. And it's, again, I really suggest everybody take a look at this book. And also the major analogy that he makes in this book that will help you understand how to create an effective web page is it's akin to creating content for a billboard that motorists need to look at going 65 miles an hour. And in that short amount of time that they pass it, they need to look at that billboard and quickly understand what it is about. And if you can achieve something like that with your website, you'll be successful. So using those lists that we created, we need to then go ahead and bucket the list of items. And that's actually a term that's used a lot in professional web development firms. Bucketing items is a big part of the process of designing a good site structure. So you want to think about what is the most intuitive way that people who are coming to my site will know to find these different items. And you can spend some time in that exercise grouping the items that you made in your list into categories that will be quickly and easily understandable when somebody is surfing your website. You need to make sure to keep these categorizations broad and not granular, so that you don't create a messy menu with lots and lots and lots of choices. Your menus, your top-level menus, your sub-level menus should really have no more than 6 to 8 items maximum, because that's the amount of items that a person who's looking at your website can quickly glance at and understand in one glance. You need to make sure that you keep things like, events that are passing out of your site menu so that, they don't have to disappear and reappear. These should be permanent, broad categories that are easy to understand. Make sure that there's a place for everything on your list, and that'll be the proof of the pudding in knowing that you created a site structure that is appropriate for your site. And then when you've set up your site structure and outline what your menus are, it's time to create the content for your site. And less is more is the defining principle for creating any content for any website. Again, you don't want to make people think. So Steve Krug's advice is actually to cut your text down to 1/3 of what you think you want on the site, and then cut it down again. You need to be really severe and really judicious about what you put on the site. Make sure that you use language that's inclusive and welcoming, and avoid insider speak. So in creating reformjudaism.org, our new website, we're very careful to not use acronyms that people who don't know much about Reform Judaism might not understand, like NIFTY and ARTSA and the RAC. We spell those words out and explain what the acronyms mean so that we don't provide barriers to people who are just coming to the site and learning about us for the first time. And you want to do the same. You should always provide translations for Hebrew words, because not everybody might know what that means and they might feel put off if they don't understand that. And very important is to design your text. Once you've cut it down and you've made sure it's welcoming, you want to present it in a way that's easy for somebody to scan. So break your text up into paragraphs with subheadings and use bullets wherever appropriate. Oh, and on the right there is a book that I also really recommend called Letting Go of the Words. That is an excellent book that really helps you understand how to do all of these things that I've just explained. And photos are a key part of your website. So the first thing you want to do is make sure that you create photos that are optimized for the web. You don't want to put giant high-resolution photos that are sized down in your web page, because that will cause a slow load time for your user while they wait for the web page to download this huge photo. So you want to make sure that the photos are sized down to web resolution, and you want to make sure that they're cropped so that people can really see details of what's going on, crop out any extraneous information that's in the photo. And very important, although everybody tends to want to put photos of their beautiful architecture on their sites, it's actually not optimal for your prospective members to see that. What they really want to see are photos of the people in your congregation who are engaged in activities in your congregation, and they are going to be looking for people in your photos that resonate with them and that look like them, so that they can feel that they might be welcome in your congregation. So that's something to keep in mind when you're choosing photos for your website. And design, obviously, is very important. So here are just a couple of tips for creating really good website design. Less is more. Again, avoid cluttering your website. Keep out as much as you can. Don't be so anxious to fill up all of the white spaces on your site. Keep it open so that people can really scan your website again and see quickly what it is that they're looking for. Avoid light text on a dark background. It's painful to the eyes to have to read large amounts of text on a site with a dark background and light text, and there are dozens and dozens of professional sites out there that still make this mistake. It's certainly acceptable for headings on your site, for menus, for graphic elements to put light text on a dark background, but for the most part, use dark text on a white background. Avoid using moving elements, animated GIFs, clip art, pop-up windows, and please don't have music that plays automatically when people get to your site. A lot of people want to put this on their sites to make the site feel welcoming and give people a feel for that they're really in your congregation. But it's actually sort of an imposition. A lot of people don't want it. They don't expect it. They might have their speakers turned up. It might not play properly on their site. And it's generally sort of unprofessional. If you want to have music on your site, allow people to press a play button to have the option to play or not play the music. So it's better to just not put effort into that. Avoid, in terms of designing the text, you want to avoid underlined text because it confuses people. They think it might be a link. Avoid the overuse of all caps, too many different colors in your text, the overuse of bold and italics. All of those things should be used very judiciously, and if they're not, then the site can be very hard to read. And as opposed to print design, where serif fonts, like in the newspapers and books that you read, are the preferred font, because of computer and web resolution, it's actually easier to read sans serif fonts like Arial. So you can use serif fonts, again, for headings, for graphic elements, but for the body copy of your site, stick with sans serif simple fonts like Arial. And keep your font choices to no more than 2. So that's another way to avoid an unprofessional look with many, many different fonts on your site. And in designing your home page, you really want to put some thought into this because this is the front door of your site. So I can't say it enough, less is more. The front page of your site is the most important real estate, so don't clutter it up with unnecessary things. Be really, really judicious, again, about what you put there. And you want to keep important items above the fold. That's a term that's left over from the print world also, where people would put the most important news stories above the fold of the newspaper. And in this case, what we mean is the most important information should appear on people's screens before they have to scroll. And you can put a welcoming statement at the beginning that should be no more than 10 or 15 words and sort of encompasses who you are as a congregation. And in terms of the layout of your page, you want to establish a visual hierarchy. And remember that if you consider everything a priority, then nothing's a priority. So you want to have a primary, secondary, and tertiary set of information so people can easily, again, look at the page and quickly consume the information on it. It's always a good idea to display highlights of upcoming events in your congregation on the home page because it makes your congregation look like a place where things are happening, and that's a good thing, of course. And you want to highlight your members, just as we showed you in the photos before. You want to have at least 1 or 2 images of the people in your congregation on your home page. So everyone is always interested in, how do I get my site to show up higher in Google? And this is the eternal question. The science behind it is called search engine optimization. And for those of you who don't know, the way that search engines like Google work is that they send out automated robots, also called spiders, and that spiders appropriately crawl the internet, and they follow links usually from the most popular, most traffic sites down to the least traffic sites. So there are many ways to get your site listed higher in Google and in Bing, but the work that you need to do in getting that done starts with how you create your site. So if your site is optimized for these search engines, you'll do better. And the first exercise you want to do is to identify what keywords will users use to find you. And you, again, need to put yourself in the mindset of theoretically your prospective audience, because that's who you want to find you on Google. And what would they be searching for? So in the example I used here, somebody is typing in Jewish events in Monmouth County, New Jersey. And you can see all of the other suggestions that Google has put in that come up. So that's an interesting exercise to do to see what the most popular searches are that start with Jewish events in Monmouth. And when you come up with and you've identified your keywords that you want to use in your site, then you start adding them into the elements of your site. So in this exercise, as in a lot of the ones that I've gone through, I'm assuming that the majority of you have somebody who's managing a website who knows how to do these things and knows code. So I hope that this is helpful to you. So the places that you need to make sure that these keywords are inserted are in your page titles, which is what you see at the very top of your web browser when you're on a web page. So a good page title might be, Congregation Aleph in Monmouth County, New Jersey. So that will help your site get indexed for people who are searching for, Congregation, Monmouth County. Your images, you should have at least one image per page on your site, and in the code where the image appears, there's always a place where you can put what's called an alt tag. An alt tag, very briefly, is the words that will show up if somebody, for some reason, doesn't load the image onto their page. It's the words that they'll see when they hover over the image. Usually with your mouse, you'll see those alternative words appear. And it's also what people who are disabled and using the website or using certain tools to surf the internet, if they are sight impaired, their tools will speak the words of those images. So it's really important for accessibility to put alt tags behind those images, but it's also what search engines like Google look for. It's important to use those keywords wherever you can in your image captions and in the code in the H1 and H2 headings, as well as making sure that these keyword phrases appear throughout the text of your site. So one thing you want to make sure to do, the temptation might be then to, well, why don't I just put Jewish community in Monmouth County all over my site and put it in the code? The search engines are wise to that, and that was a practice that was done about 10 or 15 years ago. So as soon as people started keyword stuffing their sites, of course, Google and the other search engines started programming their spiders to make sure that if you did that, you did not get indexed. So you have to be careful to follow the rules. And I didn't mention it here, but a lot of people may remember meta tags, which is also in the code of your site, and that's actually not considered effective anymore. You should have a meta title and description filled out for your website, and meta description and meta keywords, but most of the search engines aren't really going to pay it any mind. One of my personal pet peeves is when people use the words click here or link to the word here when they're linking text. It's considered sort of unprofessional. I mean, there are exceptions to that rule, but generally speaking, the words click here as a link are unprofessional, and they're sort of useless in terms of helping your search engine optimizations. One of the things that Google and Bing and other search engines pay attention to are what words are linked, because they obviously follow those links. So you do want to make sure that when you link you link keywords. So instead of saying something like, our religious school, here's our religious school registration form, click here, you would rather want to link the words register for our religious school and or download the religious school registration. And you would link that entire phrase, and that would be much more helpful for your search engine optimization, and it's also helpful for making your site, again, accessible to people with disabilities. You want to link to other pages within your site wherever it's helpful to your user. That's also helpful for search engine optimization. Don't overdo it. You really just need sort of one link per page. So if you're posting a rabbi's sermon and your rabbi is talking about your brilliant religious school program, that's an example, or she's talking about your brilliant event that the men's club had, there's an opportunity to link to your men's club page. It's very important for search engine success to get your site linked from high traffic sites. So if you're a member of the URJ, then your site is hopefully linked from our congregational directory, and that's helpful because our site is pretty high traffic, relatively speaking. And there are probably plenty of other directories where you can get your site linked to, and other sites that can link to yours. And finally, you should submit your site to Google and Bing to make sure that they are crawling your site. And there I put the URLs of the two places you can go to submit your site URL. You only need to do it once. And if you are not copying this down, you can always just search. You can Google submit my site to Google or submit my site to Bing, and that's how you get these addresses. So if you build it, they will not automatically come, as opposed to what happened in the movie. So you do need to get the word out about your website. And one way to do that is to share different pages and different pieces of information from your site on social media sites, and encourage your congregation members and leadership to do the same. You might want to consider implementing different kinds of Facebook integration to get your site visitors to share content. If you go to developers.facebook.com, you'll see a host of tools that Facebook offers, and you can add things like a like button to each of your pages so that people will like your pages on Facebook. So there are some options there. And there are some useful tools out there that are free and really easy to implement. I recommend you check out sharethis.com, addthis.com, and discus.com. We use some of these tools. They encourage, once you implement them, they encourage visitors to comment, and you can moderate the comments, comment on your sites, and share the content in your sites. You should definitely consider paid ads. Google and Facebook are the two places that you can explore. You can set a budget that's as low as, I think, $50 a month, and see, and the way that these ads generally work is that you only pay for the people who actually visit your site, and they can be very effective in getting prospective members to find your site. Make sure you include your site's URL in all of your communications and in the email signature of all of your staff members so that people are aware of your website. And use our website, reformjudaism.org. Submit your events that are open to the community to our brand new site, and we will list them for you and provide a link back to your site. And check out, I'm sure that all of you have Jewish newspapers in your community that post events that are open to the community, so you need to make sure that you get your events into the online directories and calendars of those sites. All of those ways will get people to know about the website. So you have this site and you're not really sure if people are having an easy time using it. Maybe you're making them think too much. Maybe they can't find information and they keep writing to you saying, where is it, and it's right there. So Steve Krug wrote another book called Rocket Surgery Made Easy. And it's again, his writing style is very humorous, obviously. There's a whole field out there in web design called usability testing. And what usability tests do is they usually get a focus group. They sometimes use very expensive professional software to see how people are using websites and to track what people are doing when they use the websites. So he created this book for the amateur usability tester, and his contention is that if you can't afford this expensive usability testing, then there's absolutely no reason why you can't do it yourself. And he has great ideas for exploring this and really discovering ways that you can improve your site and how usable it is. And I recommend everybody who is on this call, if you don't know what 508 compliance is, that you Google it. There's a ton of information out there that can explain it and articulate it way better than I can. But essentially it is referring to what I talked about before, which is making your site accessible to people with disabilities who are using various tools to assist them in being able to surf the web. So you want to, especially as a Jewish organization, as a Jewish community, you want to make sure that your website and not just your building is accessible. And finally, if you are unhappy with your website and thinking about building a new one, or if you don't have a website, you should learn about what URJ offers, which is a completely free website on our platform. RJ Web Builder 2.0, which is an improvement upon the RJ Web Builder that we originally offered just about 10 years ago, exactly 10 years ago this summer we started with this program, and now it's new and improved. It provides you with a custom platform with state-of-the-art websites, and it's a benefit of URJ membership, so you don't pay anything. It includes all kinds of cool bells and whistles for you to play around with, and a beautiful homepage slider. And it really is a beautiful platform. I'll show you two examples of it right now. So here are two RJ Web Builder sites that are very nicely done. This is not the live site, it's just a screenshot, so you can't see, but the section where it says Grow With Us is actually a slideshow that plays. And this site is very easy to build with our help. I'll give you contact information at the end if you're interested in finding out more about this. And these websites are also really good examples of what I've been talking about. So you can see that a lot of the ideas that I've discussed about good website design are present in this screenshot. And here, SinaiReno.org is another example. I really like this one because of the way that the upcoming events appear right there, and what's happening at Temple Sinai has a whole bunch of interesting but well-organized, easily scannable items that people can click on. And again, you can see that they only have 8 menu items, which is the maximum at the top. So that's it for the entire slideshow, and I hope that everyone has found some of the information that I presented useful. And I think we can take questions now. So, Victor, do you want to take out any of the questions?
Yes, Jill, thanks for a great presentation. It was very informative. I know everyone learned a lot. We do have several questions that came in while you were doing your presentation. And the first one is from Jerry, who asks, there are billboard pages, and he uses the term 65 miles per hour, and there are also informational pages with necessary text and content. How do you manage the need for long content, such as articles, blog entries, etc.?
Oh, that's a very good question. So when I talk about the billboard as an analogy, I'm really talking about your home page and what we term your landing pages. And those pages really should serve as an index for the deeper content that you're asking about, Jerry. So obviously the rabbi's sermon can't just be, a short paragraph that somebody can quickly scan. It needs to be long and thoughtful. But before somebody gets to the rabbi's sermon, they need to see a landing page that leads to it that's quick and easy to grasp in one glance, where they can get an idea. And there's actually something that, a term I think in usability called click confidence. And what you want to do is list the rabbi's sermons rather than, a good way to list a group of sermons like that, rather than just say rabbi's sermon from June 12th, rabbi's sermon from June 5th. You want to give people an idea of what they might see once they click that link. So you might give the title of the rabbi's sermon and 6 words that provoke somebody to want to click on that link, and give them an idea of what they're getting once they click on it. Because a click for a person surfing the web is it sounds weird, but it's actually a big investment in somebody's time when you're talking about short attention spans, which is what everybody has. So, so the deeper content should appear after the first or second click, once people have been presented with the information in one big package.
Thanks, Jill. Jane asks a question that I know is on people's mind all of the time. She wants to know, or she says she's apprehensive about posting photos on their temple website because of privacy and legal issues. How do we address that, Jill?
That's a question that gets asked a lot. I actually expected to hear that one. I think we get it every single time we do this. That's really up to your individual congregation and how comfortable your congregants are with the web itself. I would absolutely avoid posting private information like people's email addresses, people's personal email addresses. Certainly you can post, people's staff email addresses. Some organizations actually don't even do that. They just post one general email box, and somebody vets those emails and sends them to the proper recipients. You don't want to post people's personal email addresses, people's phone numbers. All that information should be kept private, because once you put it out there on the web, it's very, very vulnerable. But images of people without identifying information, a lot of congregations feel very comfortable doing that. I know the way that, for example, our religious school in my congregation handles it is we do post photos of children, but all of the parents are given a waiver at the beginning of the school year asking if this is something that's acceptable to them, and then they sign the waiver. And frankly, I'm a parent of a young child, and I know that our public school also does that. In this day and age, we've become accustomed to getting asked for permission, and that might be something you want to consider somehow, asking of the members of your congregation if they're comfortable getting their picture taken and posted to the website. But just people's images without identifying information becomes sort of the norm, and most people don't mind it.
Jill, one thing that many congregations do is on the religious school registration form, there is a waiver on the bottom that if parents sign, it gives the temple permission to use visual images of their children.
Right.
And that's increasingly common on school registration forms, and in fact we're seeing it on membership forms now for synagogues with increasing frequency.
Right. I think that the people who are not comfortable with it are the exception rather than the norm, and becomes easier then to abide their request to not have their images posted.
Right, right. The turnaround has happened rather quickly that most people now are, given the realities of things like Facebook, most people realize that their pictures are in general circulation on the web. We have another great question from Benjamin. He writes, our congregation's website has an impossibly long URL. We'd like to shorten it, but when you do a search for temples in our area, we're at or near the top of the results. Will shortening our URL jeopardize our search results placement?
My best guess to answer that question would be yes. When you start out with a new URL, you're starting out with the search engines from scratch, and your domain name needs to gain what's called domain strength. So we're working on that, for example, with reformjudaism.org and in gaining domain strength. But what we have done is we've created redirects from certain areas of urj.org that already had domain strength. So you can use that example for yourself as well. My best advice would be to sacrifice some short-term, if you really want to change your domain name, sacrifice some short-term Google listings and get the shorter domain name, but own both of them for a time and have the longer one redirect to the newer ones while the newer one gains domain strength, and then you should be okay.
Thanks. Before we go on to the next question, I just want to let everybody know that this broadcast is being recorded and will be available on the URJ's YouTube channel within the next day or two, and we'll send out a link to the broadcast. As well, we'll make available all of the slides from Jill's presentation as a PDF, and those will be available for anyone who would like them. Our next question is from Jad, and he would like to know, how do you get from the URJ content to add to your site?
Well, RJ Web Builder itself has feeds, so that's actually a benefit of using RJ Web Builder, is that you'll be able to present our content directly onto your website. But we also offer urj.org is actually being redesigned, so I'm not sure that I would point to that as a source of content for all of you, but I would rather look to reformjudaism.org, and we have RSS feeds. So most of the blog sections of our new blog have RSS feeds that you can add to your site, and we hope to be able to supply more content to our member congregations and their website that'll be useful for your websites. But I would definitely look to those RSS feeds and see if there's anything that you can find useful.
And you can find a link to the RSS feeds. Sign up from the urj.org website.
There is right now a set of RSS feeds on urj.org, yes.
Great. Andrea would like to know, what is the typical content in a members-only section?
Typical content in members-only section. Well, any information that, like I said before, would be considered too sensitive to put on your main site. So member directories, if you wanted members to share information with each other, or to have their information shared with other members of the congregation, like their phone numbers, emails, and addresses, you definitely would want to put that in a members-only section. If you have functionality on your site, like having members able to manage their own information, or to be able to pay their dues online, all that sort of information you might want to keep behind a password-protected area of your site. And that's all I can think of. That's really a question that I don't know the answer to that too well, because I haven't seen much more functionality than that in members-only sections of the site. Most of the information I think a congregation has they would want to share publicly other than the sensitive information.
Right. I agree, Jill. The only compelling information to put on a members-only site really is the membership directory, if you want to put it up on your site to begin with. The downside of a members-only section is that it implies that the website is not open to everyone who comes to visit you virtually. And you have to decide if that's a message you want to broadcast to people who are looking at your congregation and thinking about joining it. And that leads us to our next question from Amy. What are your thoughts on the balance between using the website to get new members and using it for existing members?
Say that again?
What are your thoughts on the balance between using the website to get new members versus using it for existing members?
Oh, okay. Yeah, that's actually something I had thought about before. I kind of, in my mind's eye, see existing members as almost a subset of the prospective members in terms of material. So all of the material that you present to prospective members, you also want to share with your current existing members. I can't think of really too much content that, other than members-only type events, perhaps, that existing members would want to see that prospective members wouldn't also want to see. So you really just want to think about those two audiences to make sure that you're serving them both. But the difference in my mind is that the content for the prospective members is a little bit more explanatory and welcoming, and with an eye towards, showcasing the best of what you have, whereas new members already know everything that's great, and they just want to find out what's going on and get information.
Right. Existing members are usually looking to see when an event is taking place, or looking for something on the religious school pages regarding their children in the school, as you said. And new members, that's our opportunity to put our best face forward. One great question from Alan is about Google Analytics. Can you tell us a little bit about that, Jill?
Oh, it's an excellent tool, and it's offered free. And if you are game, then I definitely advise signing up for it. There are plenty of other analytics tools out there that will cost you money, so it's a really good thing that Google offers. And all you do when you're signing up for it is you put a snippet of code into the pages of your site, and pretty soon you'll be able to go to analytics, and you'll be able to see who's been to your site and how long they've visited each page. You even sort of get an idea of where they're coming from geographically. You'll never know exactly who they are, but you'll know what pages get visited most and how long people spend on those pages. And that information can be reported out to your leadership if they're interested in it, on a monthly basis perhaps, so that you can demonstrate to them how important the website is and how it's being used. And it's also of really important use to you as the web designer or developer, so that you can analyze what pages are being used the most, what's being searched for, so that you can improve the usability of your site. And I forgot to mention before that in terms of the usability testing, this is an important point that is actually one of your ideas, Victor, is that in doing usability testing, you need to recruit people who represent the members of your prospective audience and ask them to take a look at the site through their eyes and get their feedback. So that's important in analyzing your site, and definitely analyzing Google Analytics and looking at their very easy to understand information is important in continually improving your site.
Speaking of analytics, Jane would like to know if the URJ website has built-in analytics. I'm assuming she's talking about RJ Web Builder.
Yes, I believe it does.
And if not, I think it's very easy to just simply go to the Google Analytics site and link to them and
Yes.
create the analytics that way.
Yes, Jared, who's the RJ Web Builder, the person who manages RJ Web Builder and who's the main help desk for that, can help anybody who has an RJ Web Builder site to implement Google Analytics or some analytics tool. I'm pretty sure it's Google Analytics into their site.
Right.
It's pretty easy to do.
Yes, yes. And Lexi would like to know, how do we build our site to be mobile friendly, and what are other issues we should be considering at the ground floor level?
Really, whether your site is mobile friendly or not entirely depends on the tool that's used to build your site. So most people don't build sites using straight up HTML anymore. They build their sites using what's called a CMS, stands for Content Management System. And some examples of CMSs are WordPress, Joomla, Drupal, and RJ Web Builder itself is built on the Joomla platform. And all of those content management systems, if you're using the most up-to-date version of that software to create and to manage the content on your site, have mobile-friendly versions of them. There are considerations for making sure that people who use Apple devices like iPhones and iPads get to see your content, and that is that you generally want to avoid using Flash, because those devices do not see Flash. So as cool as Flash is, it's better to keep it off of your site.
And I think we have time for about one more question. And let's see what we have. Speaking of different audiences, Jacob has asked us, why does the URJ now have two different websites?
Excellent question. So I'll give you the history of that and try to do it in a nutshell. Over the years, and I have been here as of next week, 10 years. When I started here 10 years ago, we had the urj.org site was pretty much purely institutional information about how to help leadership manage their congregations. And as time went on, there seemed to be more and more of a demand for us to present materials to people who weren't leaders of congregations, who are either just members of our congregations or people who are just curious about Reformed Judaism. And we started building the site bigger and bigger with an eye toward the fact that we were serving these two very different audiences. And once we engaged an outside web vendor to analyze urj.org and give us a recommendation of how to move forward, they came back saying, you really need to have two websites because you can't serve these two very diverse audiences well enough with one website. And the reformedjudaism.org site is really the first website out there that presents a lot of general Jewish information for people who are just seeking Jewish information through a Reformed Jewish lens. And whereas before, if they Googled something like, how do I celebrate Shabbat, they would probably end up at Chabad. So this is our answer to that. And it's our mission with the site that we not just engage and educate people about Reformed Jewish life, but we also tout the benefits of belonging to one of your congregations. So we have prompts all over the site encouraging people to find a congregation in their area. We have lots of articles that mention that being a part of a Jewish community and part of one of our congregations is sort of the end game and is sort of the epitome of exploring Jewish life. So we hope that we're serving the entire Reformed Jewish community with this site, and that we plan to really use it as a platform to get the best of what our congregations have to offer out there. So I'll just use this as an opportunity to say, if anybody has content on their websites that they think would be useful for us to post on reformjudaism.org. Take some time and look at it and submit the content to us, and we'd love to consider it and provide a link back to your website and help give you a boost with your SEO.
Well, everyone, that was a great presentation, and on behalf of everyone, I want to thank Jill Peltzman for a wonderful and informative webinar. Our attendees have asked more questions than we had time to answer, but don't worry, we have a log of all of your questions, and if we didn't get to answer you right now on the webinar, we will send you an answer via email. If you're interested in additional websites, if you'd like us to focus more specifically on an advanced topic about website design or website development, please just send me an email at vappel@urj.org and let us know what you're interested in, and we would be happy to consider it. So again, thank you everybody for joining us today, and our thanks to Jill Peltzman.
Thank you, everybody.